Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our natural living workshop with Herbalist Lily Kunning. We are greatly appreciative of her spending her time and her expertise with us to present today's DIY skin natural care. Lily, I am going to do my screen share of the PowerPoint or the PDF handout that you shared with me. And we are excited that you are providing this presentation.
Thanks. So I just want to point out that when I came up with the list of classes that I was doing for the series this year, I kind of assumed I would be in person after a year of not being in person. And that didn't really pan out. So it's weird doing a recipe class on Zoom. And so, we're going to go over the recipes and I'm going to talk about the techniques. And I have, like Darlene said, I have a handout that actually itemizes the recipes for you. But one day, hopefully soon, we'll all be in person and you'll be able to feel stuff and watch it being made. And I really look forward to that day. So just letting you know, that's kind of where we're at. So yeah. I am the formulator for Haven Herbs, and I also have a clinical practice, Lily Kunning Community Herbalist. And so together, the two entities kind of sponsor me doing these classes every month. Let's go on to the next slide. Oh, it's a pen.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Give me 1 second.
No worries. Oh, there we go. So when you're talking about skincare, we're talking about topical application of different kinds of products. And there's a lot of different topical products that we use every day. I'm thinking so far in my day, I've brushed my teeth and done a mouthwash. I've washed my face. I took a shower in which I use shampoo and soap. I use a lotion this time of year, so I am applying moisturizer. And I cut my hand, so I put some salve on it to make sure it doesn't get infected. I've already used a ton of topical applications on my body. And what you should know about topical application is you get as much out of topical application as you do ingestion. Skin is not a total barrier. It doesn't block out everything. What you put on your body gets in your body. And sometimes it gets into the skin, sometimes it gets into the fat cells, and sometimes it goes directly into the bloodstream. And we're going to talk about molecular weights and how that works in a little bit, how we know like how far your ingredients go. But 90% of the cosmetics and skincare ingredients known to the US FDA have not been evaluated for safety. And you should know that, right? Like none of the products that I make for Haven, for example, have been evaluated by the FDA because we're a supplement company and supplements aren't regulated by the FDA. That's why you put those disclaimers on there. But these big, massive companies that make, their lotions in factories, they're using ingredients that may or may not be regulated for safety. And you should know that. And by knowing that, you can learn to read labels and find out what may be a toxic load and what may be just a weird chemical name for something that is innocuous, right? Let's go on to the next slide. Molecular weight. So this really clunky diagram is trying to explain to you that some ingredients have a molecular weight that is heavy, like that big piece down in the lower right, and some molecular weights of different chemicals are so small that they can enter the skin cell, or even the bloodstream. If it's less than 300 molecular weight, then it can go directly into the bloodstream. And one of the things that I teach in the essential oil safety class, which I think is in November this year as part of the series, is that essential oils are chemicals that are one or more constituents from a plant, and their molecular weight is so small that when you apply them topically with like a roll-on, and usually it's in a carrier oil, The oil will penetrate the skin, but the essential oils go straight to the bloodstream. And that's how they're effective as topical remedies, right? So if you have a headache and you use a headache roll on, it'll go into the bloodstream and take those chemical constituents to where they need to be to lower inflammation and relieve pain. So molecular weight is really important for science to know about, because it helps us to formulate better body care and better medicine, right? It tells us what to leave out, because something that might be toxic or risky might have a really small molecular weight, and we don't want that going into your bloodstream. Or it could help inform topical medicines. And we've seen an increase in the kind of medicines that are being made that are topical patches. So they're less invasive. People don't have to swallow pills. Some people have a problem swallowing things. You don't have to have intravenous anymore. You can do patches, and they can help treat things, because the way that they're formulated is the molecular weight of the medicine is small enough that it can enter the bloodstream. Next slide. So the precautionary principle is one where I urge people to be conservative. One of the things that I've heard when I've taught these classes before about, sort of detoxifying your healthcare regime, your cleansers in your home, your body care, is people get overwhelmed by all the information and they say everything is toxic, everything causes cancer, whatever. And they get dismissive. But the precautionary principle is one that is conservative, and it says you want to approach issues of potential harm by reducing the amount of harm. And so if you are able in your life to control what is in your home, that is one way of reducing your toxic load. Of course, you can't necessarily make a difference immediately about air and water and soil quality in your environment, but you definitely can decide what you bring into your home and what you use to clean and care for your body. So if we eliminate those toxins, we're going to have a much lower toxic load and much less likely to cause things like autoimmune disease and cancer. I have seen the uptick in my practice and nationwide in the United States. Herbalists talk to one another. We have seen an uptick of cancers and autoimmune diseases as we've seen an increase in all of the toxic load that people have in their lives. Most people don't even realize, it's funny, like last cohort I had of an herb class that I was teaching, these people are interested in herbal medicine as an approach and being healers. And one of them came to me with some health problems, and we did a visit. And I was like, okay, so step 2 is you need to detoxify your home. And she was like, what? And I was like, first, let's go through all your cleaning products. And she had quite a few in there that I was like, holy cats, you got to get rid of that. And so I taught her how to read a label, and I taught her where to look for toxic ingredients. And she cleaned out boxes and boxes of things from her home and garage. And we're working on her treatment plan for a long-term chronic issue. So
Lily, we have a question in the chat. What do you think of foot detox using pads? How effective are they? Do they really detox the body? What do you know about ions detoxing the body?
Yeah, so that's some borderline iffy science there. There's no definitive proof that they work. I mean, I've seen the videos of people using them. I myself have never personally tried them. But you can get the same results by eating a healthy diet, moving and exercising every day. And if you do have to take something that is a more toxic load, like regular pharmaceuticals, chemotherapy, radiation, once you're done with those, there are ways to clean the body that I think are a little bit more effective and probably cheaper. because they're, these products, they come up with these fun little, gimmicky products, and honestly, they're kind of spendy. There is a common weed that I find in fields, and as long as it's a clean field without any heavy metals and close to the road, like I can harvest that stuff, and that stuff will detox you faster than those foot pads. With ionization, like there's a little bit of science. There's a kernel of truth in that. But honestly, your liver does a fantastic job, and so does your kidneys, of detoxifying what you take in every day. If you eat, a burned piece of food, that charcoal carbon, in high doses is a carcinogen, but your liver processes that, and your liver gets rid of that for you. When I talk about detoxifying, I'm pretty careful to talk about detoxifying your environment, your home, your body care, things like that, because I'm very aware, as someone who's in sort of a healing space, that detox and cleansing have been code words for dieting and body shaming. And I'm not about that. I believe in health at every size and in every condition, and I work with people where they're at to move them to a healthier place. I don't want people to experience the fact, like, to think of their bodies as dirty, right? So for what that's worth, that's my 2 cents. But getting back to your
we do have one more question in the chat.
Okay.
How does one detox after chemo and radiation treatments?
So I would work with a practitioner personally, but there are definitely herbs and minerals that you can take that will help get those substances out of your body, particularly out of your lymph tissue, faster. I use a series of herbs and check in with folks pretty regularly when they come to me for that treatment. But it's something that you want a partner with. You don't want to do it by yourself. Someone who can monitor you and make sure, like, if things seem off, that they send you to someone for diagnostics, for example. I'm a big fan of understanding that there are experts out there for a reason. Oncologists go through a lot of training, herbalists go through a lot of training, and they're there to help facilitate a process. So definitely utilize them. So precautionary principle means being conservative, right? Eliminating what you can and replacing it with things that are of better quality. Sorry, you can go to the next one. I saw you go back. So that means avoiding some nasty ingredients. And there are lots of nasty ones out there in US healthcare or US products, because like I said, the FDA doesn't regulate them. And frankly, we don't have enough blanket bans on specific chemicals that we know cause problems in this country. There are ingredients in US body care that are banned elsewhere because we know the risks and the companies know the risks, but it makes things cheaper. And unfortunately, that's what is the most important thing to those companies. So here are some things that you should avoid. 90% of all US body care products contain some things on this list. So fragrance is a fake umbrella term. The US decided that in order to save proprietary information for different cosmetic companies, that fragrance could be listed, and it could be a whole list of ingredients, but it would be proprietary and not need to be disclosed on a label. And what that has meant is that ingredients that people are now trying to avoid, like parabens, which we know are carcinogenic, but not banned in this country, have been moved under that fragrance umbrella for so many cosmetic companies. And this is lotions and things like that, because parabens are used as a mold inhibitor. to keep things with liquids in them from rotting, which is a natural process, right? Um, there's a bunch of different ones. So um, the DEA, MEA, and TEA are also preservatives that are used to keep things shelf stable for longer. You'll see when we go to make a lotion, I'm going to give you ingredients to make a preservative-free lotion. And one of the ways that you keep that fresh for yourself is you make small quantities at a time, because it is perishable. You wouldn't want to leave your food on the counter and think that it's going to be great 2 months later coming back to it, right? So why would your lotion be like that? And some of those preservatives are really bad for you. So parabens are carcinogens, and we don't, and they're also endocrine disruptors. So your endocrine system is your hormonal system, and it regulates more than your sex hormones. It regulates your thyroid and your pancreas and your adrenals. And it pretty much controls every autonomic process in your body. The things that you don't have to think about are regulated with hormones. And you don't want to go messing around with your endocrine system. Throwing that out of whack will cause problems. And indeed, it causes autoimmune disease. So of all of its manifestations. So we want to avoid those. We want to avoid the glycols and SLS and all of its manifestations. So SLS, SLES, it's called sodium lauryl sulfate or sodium laureth sulfate. It's a surfactant, and they say, oh, it's made from coconut, so it's natural. But the fact is the way that they chemically alter to make sodium lauryl sulfate from coconuts means that it is an irritant, and it causes problems, especially topically. They use it to degrease engines in factories, but it's also in your shampoo and toothpaste to make it lathery. And it's not good for you. If you have chronic canker sores, you need to switch your toothpaste to something that doesn't have SLS. If you have dandruff and you've tried all the dandruff shampoos and nothing seems to work, want to bet that there's SLS in every dandruff shampoo that you could buy at the drugstore? There is, and it's causing your skin to be irritated and split layers and slough off because it's trying to get rid of what you're killing, right? It's a natural process and a natural reaction to that kind of irritant. I see that we have a couple more questions. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a comment. It's Leah works in the HIV, and she says SLS is a primary ingredient in spermicide.
Yes. Yes, it definitely is in a lot of different products. And, sometimes you need spermicide, but you want to definitely use it in small quantities. You certainly don't want to be using it every day, both in your mouth and on your head as part of your body care regime, And
Leah says, friends don't let friends use spermicide. Laugh out loud.
Right? Yeah, so it degreases engines, it kills sperm, and it also causes dandruff and canker sores. So not good. I think we have another slide of some nasty ingredients that we can talk about. Yeah, so don't buy anything that broadcasts itself as including antibiotics. Plastics that contain antibiotics, like cutting boards or baby products, or what are some other things that I've seen? I can't remember, but also soaps that say they contain triclosan and I can't say it, triclocarban. Those are antibiotics, and you should know that you are more than just one thing. You are not just a person, you are a colony, and you need that colony to protect you. So all of the beneficial bacteria that we've heard about that are in our gut, we also have beneficial bacteria on our skin. It keeps us from getting sick. It keeps us from, having our skin break down from parasites. And when we use antibiotics on our skin, we're actually, killing the good with the bad. It does not discriminate based on what kind of bacteria it is. Now, I cut my hand today in a couple places. I don't know if you can see that, but I put on Boo Boo Balm, right? And Boo Boo Balm has herbal antibiotics, right? I put it on an open wound. I'm not going to put an antibiotic soap on my hands just to wash them. Soap already kills bacteria if you do it right. So you don't need all that extra. And then coal tar compounds, like resorcinol and some others, FD&C colors. I'm sure that you've seen in cosmetics or hair dyes FD&C colors. It's from coal mining. They're byproducts of coal mining, and that's how they get weird colors. So you can have green eyeshadows and frosty colors and things. They're toxic. They're carcinogens, and there are other compounds that you can use to make cosmetics, but they aren't nearly as cheap as things that are byproducts of coal mining. So in this country, cheap cosmetics that you buy at the drugstore, not so awesome. And then vitamin A compounds. These are very trendy right now. You're going to see a gajillion commercials for retinol compounds, right? Oh, they're going to help you with your wrinkles. They're going to, reduce fine lines. They are not good for you. And I keep, having to tell folks, but so vitamin A, they talk about it being vitamin A, but it's a compound that isn't necessarily safe for use on skin. Like, we have vitamin A compounds that we ingest and it's good for our cells, but when you apply them topically, it increases skin sensitivity, especially to sunlight. If you've got a history of skin cancer or it runs in your family, I would definitely not use any topical treatments that include retinol or any other kind of vitamin A compound at all. Yeah, that's one that seems to surprise people because they see so many companies out there, like the big ones on TV, advertising these wrinkle serums with retinol. And they're like, well, it must be safe. The thing to know about living in the United States is that you can't really assume safety when it comes to purchases. It's very caveat emptor, buyer beware, and there aren't a lot of regulations in place to keep us protected. And so it's up to us as individuals to arm ourselves with knowledge, which makes my life very busy because I spend my life educating people. So yeah.
Lily, we have a comment and a question in the chat.
Sure.
So the comment is, Lee says, sigh, in regards to the triclosan. She works in a hospital. All soap has triclosan in the hospital, and they're not allowed to use any other type.
Right. And so you aren't, you don't have control over that, but you do have control over things in your own home, right? I've seen so many people bring home antibiotic soap, and it's like, just wash your hands 20, like the way that you're supposed to, with warm water and lathering for, singing, bingo or the ABC song or whatever it is for the amount of time, and you're going to kill the bacteria. I get hospital settings needing, a higher level of scrutiny, but you can control what's in your own home. And that's kind of what we're focusing on here,
And then we have a couple more questions. What about hand sanitizer, and what are good alternatives?
So hand sanitizer is great when you can't wash your hands. I carry some in my car all the time, and if I have to go into a place and I've touched stuff, I will sanitize my hands. But I don't use it as my main way of cleaning my hands. My main way of cleaning my hands is hand washing. And some hand sanitizers are perfectly fine. My favorite hand sanitizer in the world is by the brand Cleanwell, and I don't get paid by them, but they use thyme extract, thymol. And thyme is my favorite herb in the whole world. It tastes great. You can put it in your food, and it kills more pathogens, viruses, and bacteria than bleach. So I like thymol products like Cleanwell. And I also have made hand sanitizer using the World Health Organization's recipe, which includes alcohol, high proof alcohol, and hydrogen peroxide, and some glycerin so that it doesn't completely leach all of the moisture out of your skin. But I've used that as well. But yeah, I mean, sanitizer, unfortunately, is a necessary evil in terms of drying out your skin in this day and age of COVID. But washing your hands is better. And when you get home, you know, invest in a good lotion or make your own after this class and moisturize. Gosh, I work in a pharmacy right now, and I am washing my hands and sanitizing my hands constantly. Not only am I, you know, counting out people's pills, but I'm also touching money from a cash register, and people come in and they aren't necessarily masked. I'm masked and I have a barrier, but you know, I'm taking things from them and then giving things back to them. And nope, I'm sanitizing all the time. So I'm with you. It's a necessary evil. Just, you know, moisturize when you can at home and wash your hands. It's gentler and also more effective. I've seen pictures. They've done pictures of what your hands look like after hand washing versus hand sanitizing. Hand washing gets way more stuff, hands down.
And then the other question in the chat is, so the prescription for tretinoin, TRENTINOIN, is contradicted?
I haven't even mentioned that prescription. That's a different compound. Yeah.
That prescription is Retin-A.
Oh, it's the generic for Retin-A?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't use it personally, but you know, it depends. I mean, you need to talk to your practitioner who prescribed it and ask them, why do I need this over something else? But yeah, Retin-A compounds can cause severe skin sensitivity. Some people have to go off it after they're prescribed it because they get lots of redness and inflammation. They're much more sensitive to sunlight. Winter in Ohio is kind of a crapshoot. Maybe people can use it, you know, in the winter when there's not as much direct sunlight, but certainly in the summer, you're going to see a lot more people not taking it. Oh, we went ahead.
We did.
Okay, cool. So what I recommend for body care, and I'm talking about things that we use every day, things that, there we go. Yay. Things that we use every day. And I mentioned some that I've used today: toothpaste, mouthwash, shampoo, soap, lotion, any number of things. You know, we recommend that you investigate your brands, make sure that you understand what's in them, or you can make your own. And it's not really that hard. You can make a batch for a month's worth of stuff in an afternoon, and then you have it. And if you invest in the ingredients, it does end up in the long run being cheaper. In the short term, it's cheaper to buy it from a natural company because you have to buy larger quantities in order to get what you need. But here are some brands that I like and recommend. So Mountain Rose Herbs has both botanical ingredients as well as skincare ingredients like different butters and oils and essential oils and things like that. They have a whole menu of things that you can buy. Haven Herbs has ready-made products if you decide to not go the DIY route. Dr. Hauschka is a European organic and biodynamic skincare brand that I love. Their daily cleanser, it's spendy, but it is really lovely. Under Aurora is a local company. They make oils to moisturize, and they also make some healthy perfumes because a lot of perfumes have a lot of toxics in them too. And I really like her Palo Santo perfume. It's really lovely. Plant Therapy is an essential oil company that's here in the United States. They use sustainable practices, unlike a lot of the multi-level marketing essential oil companies. They have sustainable sourcing for their botanicals. They don't use endangered botanicals, and they farm a lot of their own. And they're much less expensive as a result than all of the multi-level marketing upline and stuff. Noto Botanics makes facial care and soaps. Herbivore Botanicals also. And Dr. Bronner's, the old hippie standby, they make Castile soaps that are all natural. They make coconut oil that's fair trade, not make it, obviously extract it. They have a bunch of different products that are all natural, and they're really lovely and fair trade. Or you can make it yourself. And we're going to go over several different types of recipes. I think I have 3 queued up. I think we're going to do a salve, a lotion, and a facial exfoliant. I think that's what we're doing today. And so I want to, and again, you're going to get the recipes. So don't feel like you have to scribble everything down really fast or anything. Like, you'll get this slideshow, and you'll also get a page of recipes with pictures. The recipe page has pictures on it. So that'll help.
And Lily, we have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, where can you buy these? Is that information in one of the handouts you sent me?
Where can we buy what?
Yvonne, were you asking about like Mountain Rose Herbs and Under Aurora? If you can either unmute or put that in the chat.
Those are all companies that sell under their name. So Mountain Rose Herbs has their own website. Haven Herbs has their own website. You can buy directly from Dr. Bronner's, although they're also nationally distributed. Dr. Hauschka, you usually buy that at like Sephora or maybe Whole Foods or something in their body care section. Under Aurora is a local company, and they have their own website, but they're also sold. Let me think. The last place I saw them was the little crafty place, Wildcat, which is on High Street in Clintonville. They're sold there, but they're sold a bunch of places. Plant Therapy has its own website, so does Noto and Herbivore. Yeah.
A question, what's a good detox for liver cyst?
For liver cysts. So cysts require their own kind of protocol. You know, most people, when they're talking about liver detoxification, they're talking about, you know, stagnation of the liver. And so you need to cleanse it, but that won't necessarily get rid of a cyst. Excuse me. I forgot my glass of water. So with cysts, we actually need to determine if it is a cyst, if it's a lipoma, that sort of thing. And that comes with diagnostics before we can sort of decide how best to treat it. So again, I recommend working with a practitioner who's going to ask all the right questions and get some diagnostic tools before trying stuff. Because, you know, the thing about trying stuff is that you could read great reviews on the internet, which may or may not be true, but you could also end up hurting yourself inadvertently by trying things that maybe aren't the best thing for you in particular. One of the things that I think is surprising to people, because we live in this sort of biochemical medical model where there's a diagnosis and then there's a specific pharmaceutical that's recommended for that diagnosis. That's not the way herbalism works. Herbalism treats people, not conditions. And so we match plants with those people, and we kind of learn the state that person is in, which includes symptom manifestation. It also includes, you know, how you need to remediate certain symptoms. It also includes your constitutional makeup, as well as the plant and its energetics. And we kind of match plants to people. So there's no one plant that I can recommend to you for a liver cyst, if that is what it is. You would need to work with a practitioner, a holistic practitioner, to know you and your circumstance and all the things surrounding you in order to make a recommendation. I'm sorry, there's no quick answer.
And then Lily, we also, thank you. And then we also have a comment. I love the idea of Dr. Bronner's, but their soap doesn't agree with my skin. It feels like something tacky is left on my skin afterwards.
Try the bar soap instead of the liquid. The bar soap is formulated differently than the liquid Castile. Is that what you tried, the liquid Castile? Because I've heard that from other people.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, so try the bar soaps. It's been a long time, and make it really nice. And what I recommend if you're going to be using them in the shower is to invest, and they're not very expensive, in a soap sack, which is like made of sisal or some other kind of fabric that's a very loose weave. Use
I'm sorry,
the-
Lily, you're breaking up. I don't know if it's happening on everybody else's end, but your volume is really breaking up.
Okay, can you hear me now? Am
It's
I
better
good?
now. Yes, it's better now.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. I live out in the country, so internet can be spotty. Yeah, so I recommend a soap sack, which is a loosely woven sack that you put your bar of soap in. It replaces the need for a washcloth, and it also keeps your soap from melting so fast. So if you're going to use bar soap, that's what I recommend. So skincare to investigate at home. I would start doing some sleuthing around your home and look at all of your lotions and creams and deodorants, shampoos, soaps, dental care, face cleansers, hair conditioners, all of those things that you use regularly. Start with those and start looking at ingredients. And in the handout, and on the last slide, I give you a database so that you can do some research on ingredients and specific products. The database actually was compiled, and it's a free resource to everyone on the internet. It was compiled, and so it has almost every brand name in there. If you bought like something at a drugstore or a grocery store, chances are it's going to be in the database. And if it isn't, you can look up specific ingredients because all the ingredients are in the database too. And it will give you a very simple to understand rating. They rate them A through F, just like grades in school. And then they tell you why. They tell you if there's something up with that chemical, if it got a D or an F, it'll tell you why. Oh, this is an endocrine disruptor, or oh, this is an irritant, or whatever it is, it will tell you. And so that resource is going to be available to you very soon after this session is over. All right. Making your own salve. Nothing could be easier. So if you want to make a salve that's sort of infused with botanical medicine, and I give you examples in the handout, and I'll give you examples here. Let's say you want to make a boo-boo balm, like the kind I used on my cuts today. You're going to want something that's antimicrobial, and you're going to want something that heals wounds, right? Is known to sort of knit soft tissue together. So 2 herbs that I can think of off the top of my head are comfrey for wound care and an antimicrobial, I mentioned it before, thyme. So if you infuse your lipids, your oils, with thyme and with comfrey, when you simmer those oils, and you don't burn your botanicals, but you simmer them over low and slow heat, like in a crock pot, or simmering in what chefs call a bain-marie, which is a double boiler. I use a mason jar for my ingredients, and I put it in a pan of water. Nice thing about mason jars is they give you a volume measure on the side, so you know how much you're putting in, and you can store it in your mason jar after you're done. Let's say you make a salve and you make like a bunch of them because you're going to give away some as gifts, but you still have some left over. You can just put the lid on that mason jar, label it, and keep it in a place away from temperature fluctuations and light, and it'll still be good a year from now. And you can pour more when you're done with it. So first, you're going to infuse your lipids, your oils, with herbs. And I recommend doing at least 3 hours on a low and slow, and making sure you check it multiple times so that you're not burning your herbs, because that will change the chemical compounds that are in those plants that you're extracting into the oil. You don't want to burn them. Then you're going to take that oil after you've strained the herbs out of it and you've just got your lipids. You're going to melt them together with a wax. Now, I prefer beeswax. Beeswax is medicinal in its own right. It smells amazing if you get, unrefined beeswax, and it is sustainable if you buy sustainable beekeepers. Now, the kind that you buy commercially on websites or whatever, unless you're buying from Mountain Rose, they're committed to sustainable sourcing. But a lot of the, if you just buy it off of Amazon or something, you could be buying commercially made beeswax from bees that have gone onto crops treated with all kinds of pesticides that, just it isn't high quality and it's not necessarily good for bee health. The pollinators need all the help they can get right now. So I highly recommend finding a local beekeeper that does a good job of taking care of their bees. The local beekeepers we use for Haven, for honey and for wax, they're called Honey Run, and they're in Williamsport, Ohio. And we use them for all our stuff, and it's a high quality product, and we know it's local and sustainable. I prefer beeswax to vegan waxes. And I don't know if people want to hear about that. We can move on to a different topic, but vegan waxes like Carnauba or Candelilla aren't really sustainable for a number of reasons. So I use beeswax because it is medicinal, because it is natural, it is sustainable, and it makes a really nice salve. Once everything is melted together, the beeswax takes a minute to melt. It has a higher melting point than any of your lipids, obviously, whether you use solid lipids like coconut oil or whatever, liquid lipids like olive oil. Once it's all melted, you take it off the heat. And if you're going to add essential oils to your salve, you do it then after you've taken it off the heat. And you're going to agitate it to make sure that your essential oil is mixed through. And on your handout, it says no more than 5% essential oil to your formula. It doesn't say that here, but it does say it on your handout, because you don't want to overdo the essential oils. A lot of them are corrosive irritants, and you don't want to do too much. And then once you've got your liquid salve, you're just going to pour it into the container so that you can give them as gifts, use them in a medicine cabinet. Obviously, you don't want a big mason jar in your medicine cabinet, but like a little tin or a little jar like the one shown fits really nicely in a medicine cabinet. So you're going to pour into containers for use. Once they solidify, you're good to go. And it really doesn't take that long to solidify. Any questions about salve making? Because it's actually really simple. I hope I made it sound simple, because it is.
You did.
Oh, good. There's steps, but not very many. All right. So moving from salves to lotions. So what a lotion or a cream is. If you notice, salves, if you've ever applied them, they are oily and waxy because the ingredient are waxes. Lotion melts your skin a little bit, because what a lotion or a cream is it's an emulsification between lipids and liquids. So let's say, mixing and matching, we're going to make a lotion made with shea butter and olive oil as our lipids, and we're going to emulsify them with a tea that we made of chamomile, right? So we need to bring things together. Now, when we make salad dressing at home, we do emulsification by shaking really hard, right? And we know that when we make that salad dressing, it stays incorporated for a little bit, but it will separate eventually. And when you look at that jar again, the liquids and the oils will be separated. They don't want to stay together, right? Oils and liquids don't want to mix. So what you need is an emulsifier to help facilitate and keep those two kinds of ingredients emulsified together. So there is a product called emulsifying wax, and it is specifically made for making lotions and creams. And it is a vegetable, it's a byproduct of making vegetable oil and glycerin, emulsifying wax. So it's a natural product, it's vegan. And it works super well. It's super easy to work with. I highly recommend getting a small amount of emulsifying wax if you want to experiment making lotions and creams. So you melt your lipids and your waxes together. So in this scenario, we're making a shea butter, olive oil, and emulsifying wax lipid mix. I'm also going to add some vitamin E oil in there because that helps stabilize your emulsification once it's done. So you melt all those things together, just like you were making the salve, but you're using emulsifying wax instead of beeswax. And then you're going to take it off the heat and possibly add essential oils to your lipids. If you're making a body lotion, like you're going to use it all over your body, no more than 2%, not 5%. Okay. 5% is for like an acute situation. Like I've got this little area for boo-boo balm and I need to make sure that I don't get any infection. That's 5%. 2% is for daily topical use. And so, you know, no more than 2% of your essential oil of choice. And then you're going to emulsify it with your liquid. So in this scenario, we said we were going to emulsify it with chamomile tea. So I have made a strong brew of chamomile tea, maybe stronger than what I would drink, because you want all of those benefits of the chamomile in your lotion. I've strained it, so it's just the liquid. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the oils in a bowl. I use a stick blender. If you know what that is, it's what's another word for stick blender? You know, people use them to like puree soups in the stock pot.
Immersion
blender. Thank you. I knew there was another name. So you can also use a regular blender. It's a little messier and harder to clean, but I like stick blenders. So in your bowl, you have your lipids melted and your essential oils if you added some, and you start your stick blender. And then you gradually pour in the correct amount of liquid and you will see it transform. And I have pictures of it on the recipe files for you. It goes from a translucent, oily compound to a white, creamy compound as the emulsification happens through the agitation of these two things together. And it's helped along by that emulsifying wax that you melted. It helps bond those chemicals together and keeps it in a lotion form. Now, natural lotions will start to split and break apart and demulsify. Is that a word? Demulsify? Because oil and water don't want to be together. And what we're doing is we're sort of fighting a natural process of their separation by using emulsifying wax. Now, if that happens and you see the oil starting to separate from the rest of your cream, all you have to do is reblend it. And if it's in its own little lotion jar or bottle, you can shake it and agitate it that way, or you can mix it with your finger, clean finger, because you don't want to add bacteria into your lotion or cream. But again, separation is natural, just like the mold growing on this lotion after a month or so of not being refrigerated is completely natural. So we don't want to fight natural processes because they tell us that our product is actually something that we would want to use, right? If you have a bottle of lotion that you've had for more than a month and it's sitting out at room temperature and you're still using it, you have to wonder what kind of, well, I was going to use a cuss word, chemical storm is in that bottle, because you're fighting a whole bunch of natural processes of separation. So you've got some weird chemical homogenizers in there. Preservatives, you've definitely got some preservatives in there that keep it from molding or rotting. And so it's not natural. What you want is to make small, you want to buy small, you want to make small, you want to keep things refrigerated. If it's a lotion, if it has liquid in it, it's going to rot. So you stabilize it and prolong its shelf life by putting it in the fridge and then bringing it out when you're ready to use it. I recently went from selling a face serum that was more milky, just keeping it in stock, to only doing it via pre-order. And so we have a period of time where people pre-order it, they get it. It comes in small containers. They can keep the small containers in the fridge until they're ready to use it. And then they can keep it out and use it up in several weeks. And I did that because I don't want to add all these chemical compounds to a lotion. I want people to be able to use the cleanest product possible. And so, you know, that's how we solved that problem. Obviously, big corporations are not going to do that kind of model, but, you know, we have different priorities. So
Lily, we do have a question in the chat. Lene starts with, man, I'm afraid to ask if I have older, in quotation mark, lotions I've kept. These are purchased from a chain company. How long can I keep them? How long should I keep them?
I mean, honestly, they're not doing you any favors sitting around and necessarily using them, because you really need to look at the ingredient list. And if you've had them around a while and you don't understand some of the ingredients, first I would do the sniff test. Your senses will tell you a lot. If you open up that bottle and you pour some out onto your hand and it looks slightly different color, or maybe there's multiple colors in there, you know, some is more white, some is more yellow, like that's an aging issue. If it smells rancid, and if it doesn't, then there's probably a bunch of preservatives in there that aren't serving you well. So I would get rid of them. I tell people to get rid of their sunscreen every year. Like most people have sunscreen left over at the end of the summer. You know, you buy a bunch thinking you're going to get out more than you do. But yeah, first of all, if it's a chemical sunscreen, you don't want to use those anymore. But second of all, if it's a mineral-based sunscreen, which is what I do recommend for people, particularly with cancer issues, after a year of sitting suspended, all of those, the zinc oxide particles, sitting suspended in liquids and lipids, suspended there in the sunscreen, they're not going to have the same effect that they did. So you need to buy new sunscreen each year. Okay, I was about to tell you the difference between sort of a lotion and a cream as you're making them. So a lotion is liquidy enough that you can pump it out. And so obviously, or maybe not obviously, if you've never made it before, you're going to use more liquid in a lotion than you would a cream. That's really the only difference, is that when you're formulating your skincare, you decide, okay, I want a thicker, heavier cream. Like this is going to be a night cream for me. I'm going to put it on my face and I'm going to hang out, have a glass of wine, and then go to bed later. So you want a cream. So you're going to use less of that chamomile tea to make a thicker cream than you would if you wanted it to be a lotion in a pump. If you put a thick cream, so the other thing to know is that when you're making both of these products, when it's still warm, because you've taken it out of the double boiler and you've mixed it even with a room temperature water, it's still going to be warm. It's still going to look runnier than its final end product. So what I recommend, and I put the ratios in your recipe files, if you want a cream, you're going to use like a 1-to-1 ratio of lipids to liquids. If you want something runnier that can go through a pump lotion, you're going to add more liquid. And so I just wanted to point that out in case it wasn't obvious in the handout from what I gave. But you can do it either with a stick blender or a regular blender. It'll be harder to clean with a regular blender, but you'll get all that stuff out, all that goodness out between the blades at the bottom of the cup. And you use what you make within a month and store any excess that's more than a month's worth in the fridge to preserve that shelf life. You know, you're going to be making small quantities if it's just for you. So maybe, you know, you make it and you give impromptu gifts to your friends. Because honestly, it's really easy to make a whole bunch of lotion on accident or on purpose. Okay, so let's move off of lotion.
So Lily, Janet has a question and a comment. Janet, you're welcome to unmute.
Hi, a couple of things. The person that had the question about how long to keep the cream, I think she said it was from Bath and Body Works.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention the name since we're recording this. I didn't want to mention the brand, the chain name.
Oh, well, I want to make a comment. I was at I had to wash my hands somewhere, and that was the only liquid soap that was there, you know, the only soap. And so because I try to avoid fragrances, and I think that particular company, I won't say it again, is still heavy on that. I washed my hands and I could not get that smell off my hands. It was amazing. And second, the other comment I had was when you started talking about sunscreen, I have a powder mineral-based sunscreen. And do you also recommend that after a year, that probably is not doing the trick?
If it's powder, it's probably just zinc or titanium oxide, yes?
Okay.
If it's just powder, it hasn't worked by the liquids and the lipids the way that a suspended sunscreen would. So you're probably fine. I'm interested in how you apply that. Do you mix it right before you do it?
No, it's I purchased it at it's organic and it's in a tube and it has a brush at the end and it's primarily for your face.
That's cool. I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I have a funny anecdote if we have time about going to the mall and dealing with overly fragranced stores.
So we did have a quick question for Janet. Janet, where did you find the mineral powder for that sunscreen?
Wait a second. I'm on my phone, so I have to, you know, play around here. I did not make it. I purchased it and I purchased it at, it's the name of the brand. I'll write it in the chat. It's Eminence Organics. And actually I purchased it at a place where prior to COVID, I was getting facials, and that's the product line she uses. So I'll type the name in the chat so you guys can look online for it.
Awesome,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Lily, we have a question then also in the chat. Is the 1 month time to use the same for nail polish?
So nail polish is its own crazy ball of wax. Depending on what brand you use, you know, it could be toxic or not. Most brands are not that great. I had to search high and low. When I had my little brick and mortar store in Clintonville, I had to search high and low for a nail polish brand that I felt confident selling to people. And I had to get it imported from Germany. So it was kind of spendy and came in really small bottles compared to like American brands that you can buy at the drugstore. Honestly, a better alternative to nail polish in this country are the ones that you sort of wrap over your nails now. I can't remember what they're called because I don't do those, but it's like some sort of cellulose extension on your nails, and you kind of attach it and they sort of wrap on your nail. I can't remember what they're called. I'm so sorry, but nail polish, honestly, I would seek out non-toxic alternatives. And I'm trying to remember what the brand name was that I carried now. It was so many years ago. But I do remember that they were from Germany.
Dr. Oz once said Mineral Fusion was a better choice.
Mineral Fusion for nails?
Correct, their polish. He recommended it.
Oh, okay. So the last product that I want to talk about making is super simple. I'm ending on a very simple note. So making a facial exfoliant. So, you know, as I've got, when I was younger, I used much harsher exfoliants than I do now. My skin is more delicate. It doesn't feel right to lacerate my face all up. So I make a gentle exfoliant to get off the dead skin cells and any dirt that's there, and to suck out any dirt or oils from pores, but not like really intense feeling exfoliants. And so you can decide how much exfoliation you need. Like obviously facial exfoliants would be more gentle than say foot exfoliants, right? When I use body exfoliants, like in the winter when I'm trying to slough off dead skin, I'll use like a sugar scrub, but I don't want to use that on my face. So what I do is I use almond flour or almond meal. Almond meal is a little more granular than almond flour. Almond flour is very fluffy like flour is. But you can also use a less gentle thing like almond meal or adzuki bean powder or ground oats as your main abrasive. And obviously how abrasive you want to get is up to you. But then I would also add clays and botanicals. And so clays for aging skin or delicate sensitive skin, I would recommend like a French green clay. And for acne prone skin or skin that has things like rosacea or other problems, I would recommend bentonite clay. And then you can add powdered botanicals. So shown here is calendula petals. They're really great for dealing with inflammation and sensitivity. So if you do have rosacea, calendula is a really lovely choice. Chamomile is really nice. It's also anti-inflammatory and gentle. And rose is really great for firming skin, building collagen and elastin, particularly in aging skin. Rose is really great. And you can powder those if you buy a little herb grinder, one of those coffee bean grinder things, but just keep it set aside for either culinary herbs or body care herbs. It's about $20 to buy one of those things, and you can powder rose petals really easily, dried rose petals or chamomile or calendula, and then you just mix it all together. I tend to do equal parts of almond flour, clay, and botanicals, and then it creates this powder. And honestly, you don't need very much. I put like a quarter size amount in my palm. I add a little liquid and make a paste. And then I go ahead and I clean my skin and then I rinse it off. It gets out so much. The clays help draw out oils and dirt from your pores, especially if you exfoliate and leave it on for a little bit. Just let it do a little bit of work before you rinse it. The botanicals, coming in direct contact with the skin can help a number of different issues with skin. And, using a botanical abrasive rather than microplastics, which is what a lot of commercial products use, is much better for you. It's horrifying, the microplastics issue. This is actually really, and keep it in a jar in your medicine cabinet and make a big bag if you need to, and keep it in the freezer to keep it fresh while you're using what's in your medicine cabinet. So for resources, Mountain Rose Herbs, I talked about. Bulk Apothecary is here in Ohio, up in Cleveland, and really great oils and butters and essential oils that you can get. For packaging, if you're wanting to make like a nice little product that you're going to give away to your friends or your family, there's several different companies here. And is a brick-and-mortar store, but online you could go to SKS Packaging. They have some pretty fancy spa-like packaging and Specialty Bottle. The thing about Specialty Bottle, which is so nice, is that even though they don't have super duper fancy packaging, although they have some, you can buy it by the piece, which is nice for people who are making and stuff. And then for research, I have two websites here. EWG.org, which stands for Environmental Working Group. I recommend almost every time I'm dealing with toxics in my classes, but their Skin Deep database is for body care and cosmetics. And then safecosmetics.org is also another really great resource to help you determine what your house and if it's safe. It's 2:05. I went over. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We had lots of wonderful interaction and questions. And real quick, like before we get to the final questions in the chat, I did want to show everybody that this was the one of the handouts that Lily is going to be, that she sent to me for me to forward to you. And it's labeled the EWG. And then the other one are the recipes that she has sent. So Lily, we are greatly appreciative of you sharing this information. We do have a couple of questions. If you have a couple more minutes to answer those, if you can see the chat, since I ended my screen share. The first one going back is about the nail wraps.
Yeah, that's what they're called, nail wraps. I couldn't think of the word. You can buy those from CVS, and then there's also more spendy ones, obviously, that are a little higher quality. You can get them from specialty retailers. I think there's even an MLM company where people can sell them from home,
Yes.
you know?
My niece is one of those consultants, and I will not mention the name because we are recording this, but if anybody wants to know, I can share afterward. I'll put it in the chat so it's not, the name's not being shared.
Okay, so it says, do you use the real rose petals, of any kind, also chamomile, can you use it first for tea? Okay, so there are different varieties of roses, obviously. If anyone's a rose aficionado, you know there's so many different subspecies of roses. The ones that I tend to use for medicine are Rosa rugosa. It's a bush type rose, and it has wonderful smell, but it also has a lot of the properties that I'm looking for in a medicinal rose. Chances are, if the roses that you bought were for cut flowers and they're like Valentine's Day style roses, they're not going to have as many of the chemical constituents that you're looking for, because we've selected for a certain look over, you know, other qualities. So Rosa rugosa is what I tend to use. And when you buy them from like Mountain Rose or things like that, that's the kind of rose you'll be getting. But you can also use rose if you have wild rose growing near you. Or you can use like a more of a 5-petaled rose, like a Tudor style rose. They tend to have more medicine and fragrance than the Valentine's Day roses. I'm just calling them that because today's Valentine's Day. There you go. Let's see. Also, can you use it first for tea and then dry and powderize? No, because if you are extracting chemicals from the chamomile via tea making, whether that's an infusion or a decoction or whatever, you're taking away the things that you want in your topical application. So save some for tea. Sure, chamomile tea is wonderful, but then use some of the dried stuff and powder that separately for your exfoliant. Let's see what else. Could you also use rose hips? Yes, rose hips are medicinal. I wouldn't use them for an exfoliant because they're very abrasive, but they're high in vitamin C. They are wonderful in cold and flu tea. Definitely use your rose hips. You can also make a really lovely rose hip jelly. And I think that's all the questions, unless there are more.
Well, Lily, I know we did go over a little bit, but it was some wonderful questions and great interactions. And again, we greatly appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise and knowledge with us. It is always such a pleasure to work with you, and so glad that we can continue to offer these natural living workshops through the wonderful world of yes, we could do the wonderful world of technology. And Becky said, thank you for a great presentation. We could continue for hours, and we could, but we're not going to. So thank you again. We greatly appreciate that. And